Thanks for being here and joining us to this session. We'll talk a little about seamless integration between CPQ and SAP today, but foremost this is about customer experience at the end. How can we make it easier for your people to access data, real-time data out of SAP? How do we have a more seamless integration with SAP? How can we answer questions quicker? And at the end, the ultimate goal is to give your people time back. How can we reduce time that's spent in back office work by grabbing data in real time when they need it and not needing to call the back office for answers? And when we look at our customer base, they typically save 6 to 8 hours per week per salesperson, and that's a game changer. So it's awesome to have Max here with me today to talk about the seamless integration between CPQ and SAP and how he sees that, how important that is. And of course, Max doesn't need a lot of introduction as a former founder of Steelbrick. So awesome to have you, Max.
Glad to be here there. Check out.
I think everybody saw the forward-looking statement slide so far. I don't need to mention too much about it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. I see some familiar faces in the audience. So I guess I'd like to start by showing this slide, which is so we're here at Salesforce. Our mission is obviously to help you with your digital transformation, help you connect to customers in whole new ways. So it's about this connected customer experience and the customer journey, and obviously we see Salesforce CPQ as a key enabling technology for that. Because it enables your sales reps to turn around quotes faster and deliver that connected and seamless experience that your customers demand today. And of course, we do it on one platform, from marketing through SFA to service and beyond. And so you can see it here. So our vision really is an integrated solution on Salesforce front office platform that's based around the same single data model and the same platform all the way through full spectrum of business processes from lead to quote. But I think I have one more slide, right? But of course, if you're a manufacturing organization or really almost any organization who makes things, you do have a back office. You gotta fulfill the orders. You got to produce the things that you're making. And so, as much as we at Salesforce like to talk about the digital transformation and the customer experience and the front office platform, the reality is there is a back office platform, and particularly in manufacturing organizations, it's very important. And of course, SAP is the gorilla in that, and a lot of our customers have this problem, and they come to us and they say, well, everything you say is great, we want to deliver, we want to have CPQ for our reps, we want to, enable them to, put together quotes and configure them very quickly, right within Salesforce, but I have all this material master in SAP. I have all my configuration rules that govern how they're manufactured in SAP. So how do I connect the two worlds without having to recreate the rules in both places? And so that's where we started working within the six, and they have a terrific solution that really allows you to combine the best of both worlds to continue mastering your products and pricing in SAP, even continuing to support the rules in SAP Variant Configurator, because maybe you have an e-commerce storefront that's also running off of the back end, or you may have some downstream processes that are dependent on SAP logic. So you can just move it to Salesforce CPQ if you wanted to in some cases. And so that's where we see a big need in the marketplace. Certainly, I've seen it with many of our customers who use SAP, and Gerald and his team put together a terrific solution that marries back office and front office. And of course, they have a ton of expertise in SAP as well, which is not to be underestimated.
Thanks, Max. So let's go a level deeper on that. So I think what Max just said is, how can we mash up those business processes? How can we take the good stuff from CPQ and the relevant stuff that we can't move quickly? We might move it over time into the Salesforce CPQ, but we know there is history, there is codings done, there is user exits done, there is 1,000+ rules in complex scenarios. And how can we inject that in real time in your CPQ process? And this is what Eric, our CPQ expert, will show us in a minute here in the demo. But envision it, we start off on the CPQ side, we start off with a code, we have the traditional materials in there, we can add then a third-party configuration piece, and then we pull all that data, the SAP rules, the SAP MM validation, material characteristics, dependencies, without any recoding. We simulate that and virtualize that and move it into the CPQ screens for processing. So everything you see will touch in real time from SAP. You don't need to transfer data, you don't need to move data, you don't need to recode complex business logic, especially if you use it in multiple areas for production, for e-commerce store and other things. If you change that in SAP, it's all available for your CPQ user as well. And then when it's needed, we update that information back into CPQ so you can keep all your CPQ business processes intact, leverage the power of CPQ, and as well have code printout or other document printouts, and then do all the other follow-up processes within Salesforce up to billing. And I think that's the beauty of this. Depending on what your scenario is, you can pick and choose what you want to inject into CPQ. You don't need to have everything, but you might decide for one business product line, CPQ has all the data, and for a more complex product line, you need some injection data out of SAP in real time. And that's the beauty. You can mix and match it as needed and get the best out of those things. Eric will show us a quick demo how that works in the CPQ environment.
I would love to. All right, so as you see here, this is a standard quote out of CPQ, 100% right out of the box. I added 2 groups just for my own personal preference. You'll see the configured items right here. We'll go ahead and add a product. Now beforehand, we already linked up this product with an SAP material record in the back end. So with that being said, there's an automatic relationship between the two. We're able to go out and look at all the characteristic information that exists over in SAP and then give the users a selection for the values that they can put into those characteristics. So we'll go ahead and select that. And right out of the box, CPQ gives you the opportunity to use the external configurator. That's what we did within this window. We're hosting this within Salesforce, so there's absolutely no server between the two, SAP and Salesforce. This is 100% Lightning components that you see right here, and the entirety of the view is rendered dynamically. So all of those characteristics that exist in SAP, we're bringing those over, and then we're rendering a specific control for each one of those characteristics. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with Vary configuration, the characteristics are more like a facet for what we need to kind of configure for each different aspect of the PC what we're using here. As you can see, I have model, processor. All these different characteristics make up for a valid configuration for us. If you see when I select these options, like speed for instance, we have a lot of options coming right out of the bat. We don't have to have a linear process starting from model and going all the way to the end of the configuration. We can start really anywhere within that configuration. But what I wanted to show you is if we make some selections, each time we make a selection, we're actually going out in real time to SAP, fetching the information, seeing what characteristics and values are actually valid, and bringing that back to the user, all without them having to do switching between contexts of SAP and Salesforce. So they're in Salesforce CPQ the entire time. They're seeing valid configurations. We're actually configuring in real time. So I'll show you all these processor speeds here. If we select I5, you'll notice the processor speed is a selection of those. We're actually reaching out again in SAP, bringing back the valid configurations or characteristics based off of that. So another common scenario is a customer wants to order a specific product that has, let's say in this scenario, they want to order something that has an i9 processor. So we'll clear up configuration for this scenario. We'll select i9. And you'll notice that actually, again, because we're not doing it in a linear process, the models are now sub-selection of what they were, and so are the speeds. So everything is based off of whatever selections come in from the user, and again, it doesn't have to be selections. It can be any kind of data type that they have in the back end for the very config characteristics.
So not just how your dependencies built in, but automatically, depending on what configuration setup is done by the main material, all those screens are dynamic. So you don't need to worry about, oh, I have to recode this for this material, recode this for this material. It drives it out of the business rule set in SAP that's configured. And if you change the configuration, the front end adapts to it without any change needed in the front end. And that's the huge differentiator with the solution.
Exactly. So instead of going through and boring you all with all these selections, I'll go ahead and just go off of what we call a material variant, or what SAP calls a material variant. So this is a pre-configured option that exists over in SAP. We query those options, bring them back in real time so the user can make the selections, but then they can go in and customize these, all while getting real-time pricing from SAP. So let's go ahead and add some more RAM to this Pro user computer. And you'll notice the pricing updates in real time. Additionally, we'll add, let's say, some Office software suite. Pricing updated again. Now, where I think the real magic comes in is where we get to reintegrate back with CPQ here. So when I push finalize configuration, we're actually going to update the quote that we had started from. And you can see here,
this is the key of the seamless integration.
Right.
Like, you don't want to have iframe windows, you don't want to have complex manual steps in between. It all talks in real time with each other. It's a seamless handoff between the two systems, and that's why it's so powerful for the user.
It's not integrated at the data level, it's actually integrated using our APIs plugins in the product, so it's actually running within the quote creation process, and it's the exact same process you would follow if you were configure a product using native Salesforce CPQ functionality.
Yeah, and that's a good point to bring up. Bringing over the characteristic values is insurmountable when you talk to a lot of these companies. There are tens of thousands of different variations that you can bring over. Instead of attempting to synchronize those, we do it just in time. So we reach out when they need to do the configuration, bring that over, and inject it when we need to. So from here, you would just handle the quote just how you would with any standard CPQ quote from here on out. And to demonstrate that, I've actually got our quote template here. We'll get this loaded up. You can see how this can be useful for a sales employee to be able to send this out, knowing that the configuration coming from SAP is going to be 100% correct in real time, and that pricing is going to be the most up-to-date that we're going to have at SAP.
And again, this is a standard setup in the CPQ. This is your forms to define all that ties natively into your CPQ environment.
So yeah, that's our standard demo. If you all want to see a further demo and see how we can kind of interact directly and what other options we have to interact directly with CPQ, you can come visit us at our booth. We got the number here, and then additionally, Girls, we want to talk about that.
Yeah, we want to point out as well, we just released a new App Exchange product around Business Integrator that ties into the Lighting Designer, so you can drag and drop SAP elements in applications. For application development, for custom application developments, and designing your screens. Check that out. Again, stop by at our booth, and I'll talk more about that as well. Again, it's all about giving your users time back from back office work, saving 6 to 8 hours a week per sales rep, so that they can spend more time with your customers and serve them better. Thank you. Any questions if there are?
Here we have a question back here. A moment.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm very interested in the CPQ, and what you showed is great, and actually our company is using SAP as well. So I want to know, when you do the selection, I saw you do a serial selection, like pick one and then go to the next one and pick one and go to the next one and pick the next level down configuration. Can you do it in parallel, like with affecting the performance? Because sometimes the users feel that takes very long time, especially when you have hundreds of selections.
Yeah.
Would that affect the performance of the selection, and how does it work when it's real time? Like
so typically, if there is no dependencies or constraints set up between those, you can combine them in groups, and then you can select all of those without going back to SAP and calling the update. But if you have complex dependencies, you would have to call it every time. So that you would have to check how complex your model is in the backend. But sometimes is done, there are separate VC model setup that are sales-oriented, depending on production-oriented, because the production-oriented VC models typically are not a fit for salespeople who are streamlined selection on that product. But if you're more interested, we can deep dive at the booth number 1971.
More questions? Any other questions? Here we go.
You mentioned it's certified on the slide at least. What does it mean certified? Is it SAP certified?
It's SAP certified add-on, so you install it with Saint, and it's an add-on on the SAP side, so it's easily takes care of the communication between SAP and Salesforce. There's no middleware, so it's a point-to-point connectivity that shows a secure layer, so you don't need to worry about any middleware that's communicating. It sits on a hosted Salesforce system, has the app, the managed package, and then the backend is an SAP app.
Any other questions?
And we are giving out t-shirts for questions, by the way, so.
Anybody? No? Thank you, Eric, Gerald, and Max.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Stop by our booth for more information.